to another episode of The Influential Nonprofit. I am your host, Marianne Dersch. I work with nonprofit leaders to master the art of influence so they can raise more money without feeling rejected or pushy, because nobody wants to feel rejected or pushy. And we want to just raise money to do more good in the world. And I'm here with Sarah Buek, who is the founder and principal at I'm going to say this wrong, so you say it for me.
The IllumiLab.
The IllumiLab, LLC. And I'm all about mindset and feelings and all of that. And Sarah really works with organizations on outcomes, evaluation, data management, and all. And so I'm so excited because this is a very yin and yang conversation, but also with a foundation really in like this in value we share, which is like intention and purpose, right?
Yep.
So welcome, Sarah.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Now, I always start with the first question, which is, because I love this question, tell me something you're proud of that you don't get to brag about very often.
Ooh. That's such a tough question.
That's why I ask it.
Oh. Can it be that my tennis shots are improving?
It can be whatever you want. Tell me about your tennis shots.
They actually go where I want them to go now.
Are you new to tennis? Is this
I mean, define new. I've been playing 3 years and I'm a leisurely learner, but it makes me really happy when I can intend where I want the ball to go and then make it go there.
Woo!
Yeah.
Look at the power and command I have over the universe when I can make the ball go where I want.
I'm all about intentionality, even when I'm playing tennis.
Yes, me too. Okay, so let's get into this. What I think a lot of organizations, so I'll just share this. I do this influence course, and then people who want to continue working with me, I have a year-long back-end program called the Power Circle. And I was telling my Power Circle members about you. And also that I want in my course, I want to kind of start to, come up with some data around the outcomes that I generate. And they all said, oh, the elusive outcomes. This is all what we want. And I thought, is it really that elusive? Because don't you get people to do this? Like, that's what you do, right?
Yep, it is. I mean, I work a lot with human service organizations, and the results that they're trying to achieve are truly hard to measure. They're not things you can observe with the naked eye. So they take a certain amount of careful reflection and intentionality to articulate in ways that are meaningful and measurable, and then to come up with manageable ways of measuring. At the IllumiLab, those are our 3 M's: meaningful, measurable, and manageable. And for a lot of nonprofits, they count what's easy to count instead of measuring what's meaningful. And so the meaningful outcome is what feels really elusive because, yes, it is in fact hard to find and hard to measure. But usually the reason it feels so elusive is because organizations rarely take the time to step back and ask themselves what would be most meaningful. What's the story they want to tell? What's the impact their program is designed to achieve? In all the hubbub of raising money and writing grants and reporting on grants, they get lost with what their original intentions were. And so they end up with a laundry list of outcomes that they've promised to a variety of funders, and their meaningful results and intentions are just obscured. They just get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah. So from my perspective, when you were saying that, what was coming through for me was so much about, you feel like you have to chase the money and like pull like, oh, I need to do it like this because that's what the donor wants. And I have to bow to them because they have the power, they have the money. And so, and how I work with people is understanding your own value and attracting the right partners, like in like being grounded in abundance to attract the right partners, right, that will support you in that meeting instead of feeling like, oh, I have to. And so what I'm hearing you say is like, oh, they're kind of being like pulled in these different directions. Oh, I got to appease this person and this person and this person. And then what I really want to do, or what has meaning to this organization or this culture, is kind of like an afterthought.
Right. So often when I ask organizations what their intentions are or what outcomes they want to achieve, they start rattling off all the things that they've promised to funders. And I have to say to them, hold on, Let's suspend reality. Set that aside for a minute. Think of your most successful client. Tell me their story. And I listen for, what did that look like, sound like, feel like? Why was that motivating and energizing to their team? And then we turn that into something meaningful and measurable. Because to your point, nonprofits, I think, take funders' expectations perhaps a little too literally. And they think that the funders are all knowing when they're not. And if nonprofits could suspend reality, step back, set aside all of their funder promises, and ask themselves what they get out of bed to do in the morning, why they do this work, what would be most meaningful. And if they can craft a meaningful and measurable system around that to measure and improve their performance, then go sell that to your funder. Having been a grant maker myself, funders feel some pressure also to measure their impact and the return on their investments. And when nonprofits don't come to the table with a clear articulation of why they do what they do, why they do it the way that they do it, and what measurable success looks like, then funders feel like they have to fill the gap, and they have to prescribe things, and they have to give you a menu, and they have to tell you. But if a nonprofit comes to the table with a real clear theory of change, with a logic model that's actually logical, and with meaningful and measurable outcome statements, most funders would find that impressive. Wow, this is an organization that understands what they're about and what they're trying to do. They understand that measuring this is the right thing to measure, to monitor and improve success. Sounds like a good partner to me.
Right.
So it's about giving them their power back.
Yes. You're using my language now. Take your power back. I talk to people about that all the time. Enough of this. I take my power back. And what I'm hearing is, okay, so because nonprofits aren't showing the measurable, meaningful outcomes, the funders are like, well, we have to be, we're accountable to this money too. So we're just going to give you the ones that we see so that we can be accountable for something. But if they come up like, when they come in and say, hey, we've done this work, and they're like, sold, let's do it your way.
Yep.
And imagine the partnership and the trust then that's built on that, because once people have that trust and they relax, right, and then they relax into the relationship. One of the phrases I use and I teach people to use is like, the way I work is, right? So the organization comes with, basically it's like, the way we work is, right? Here's our theory of change.
Yep.
Here's like, oh, like, people want to know you have a process.
Yep.
They want to know, like, even in marketing, like, people, even like with a donor, they want to know you have a process. What comes next,
They
right?
want to know you have intentions and that you have reason to believe that your process and intentions will get you to the result.
Right. I want to ask you a question. I did a podcast about this the other day, and I've been working on like a keynote around this conversation because I put it out last week and I got a lot of feedback about it. I got a lot of people emailing me saying, wow. And what it was like, stop sharing your mission and message in the negative.
I listened to the start of that today. Yeah.
Right. So like, we want to end homelessness, keep kids off the streets, like, and I get that. And also what I feel like the next wave is, or the next evolution is, like, not just ending homelessness, but what are we creating on the opposite side of that? Like, what is the vision that we see? And one of the reasons I think this is important, that I didn't go that much into, but I'm wondering if you could comment on, is, if you're saying, I want to, reduce child abuse, like, it's hard to prove a negative. It's hard to prove that something didn't happen.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah. So particularly prevention programs, enrichment programs, they really struggle to articulate their outcomes, because their outcomes are, as you said, the absence of something, or, preventing something. Or in enrichment programs and basic need programs, the things that they're delivering are just valuable on their face. Like, kids need coats.
Right.
Art adds value to our lives. Like, it's really hard to measure
Right.
outcomes for those things.
I was thinking of one of my clients from a long time ago, Episcopal City Mission. It's a ministry of presence. Like, they're, like, the value that they get ministering to kids, um, in
In detention, right?
juvenile
Yeah.
custody, right? Like I was trying to find the right words for
Mhm,
that. It's been a
mhm.
long time since I worked with them. But, like it's a ministry of presence. They're not saying, oh, this person transformed this much.
Yeah. And that's where a tool like a theory of change can be so valuable for organizations is if your work is one piece of a puzzle and you don't want to overclaim your results. That's the other thing. I feel a lot of organizations feel pressure from funders and they overclaim their results in ways that it's just not feasible. It's just not plausible. Like an early childhood program measuring their success according to high school graduation, like 14 years later, or a ministry of presence like that claiming that their services reduced recidivism. Like organizations feel pressured to overclaim because they just don't have the tools to articulate the value of their contribution. This is our piece of the puzzle. This is how our contribution is the first of many ripples. And a theory of change is a tool that can help organizations
So
do that.
I would love to talk more about that because like I'm thinking of a couple examples like, a summer camp where
Mhm.
the kids are, transformed, but they're transformed within like maybe this 1 week or 2 week or 1 month experience. So tell me more about the theory of change.
Yeah, so oftentimes people use the term theory of change interchangeably with the idea of a logic model. And there are different approaches to creating a theory of change.
And I like the language logic models always like all of a sudden I'm like,
No, I know everyone does.
okay.
Not, but by the time I'm done teaching it, they're not. The
Okay,
reason
awesome.
everyone the reason everyone goes is because they've only ever done a logic model for a grant application,
Yes.
and they're not actually creating something that's logical. They're just frantically gathering a bunch of information and dumping it into the template, and it doesn't actually guide program design or evaluation. That's why people go ugh when you say logic model. But we think a theory of change and a logic model are related and complementary tools, but with distinct value. And for organizations that are in the business of prevention or enrichment, they're one piece of the puzzle. They're the first link in a long chain of change. A theory of change is a tool that helps you articulate the pathways that you believe lead to your ultimate result. And there might be lots of other things that have to happen in that pathway, but it articulates this is our piece of the puzzle. This is where we intervene. And we believe that by doing this, it contributes to this, which contributes to this, which gets to this ultimate goal, which you, stakeholder, funder, donor, supporter, care about. So it helps stakeholders who don't quite understand your programming or your purpose. It helps them understand your context and where you fit into a larger system of change, which I think is valuable for program design. I think it's valuable for storytelling and for raising support.
Yes, like because my wheelhouse is the storytelling, and raising support, and definitely being able to tell a story of a process, right?
Yeah.
And here's how we fit into the
Yeah.
a process of change.
Well, and I
And
wanted to go back to what you said earlier about like leading with the negatives and, organizations talking about the bad things they want to prevent or reduce. What I find often too is organizations will introduce themselves to each other, to donors, to funders, to supporters with a list of their activities. If you go to a nonprofit networking event pre-COVID, when people used to do these things in person, and everyone's introducing themselves to each other, hi, I'm Sarah, and I work at ABC nonprofit. And they go, oh, what are you guys all about? They answer by listing all of their activities, all their programs and services. And what I want organizations to be able to do is to answer that question with their outcomes. Well, we create strong and resilient communities by hosting this, delivering that, providing this. Like start the sentence with the results that you create and end the sentence with your services and
and
interventions and
and
all this
that's
stuff.
exactly what I help people do. And like I just remember I was facilitating a discovery session with an organization, and this woman said, I was at the bank, and somebody's like, oh, and I had my shirt on, and they said, oh, what does your organization do? And she said, and I started to talk about our programs, and she said I could see her attention just like fade. I'm like, right, because no, but it's what it's the how. People aren't interested in the how. It's the
It's the why.
the why, right? And
Mm-hmm.
there's a saying I work with a lot. It's like, um it's not the medicine, it's the cure. People will
Yep.
swallow any medicine if the cure is strong enough. So we're
Mhm.
talking about the cure. How is our world different because you're in it?
Mhm.
And instead of, oh, we do this and this and this, create communities, or like whatever it is that we're creating, it's about the outcomes. That's what people, it's really like, it's not what it, because they're not really asking what do you do, they're asking why are you important,
Yeah, why do you matter? Why
why do
are
you
you here?
matter, yeah, why do you
Yep.
matter. And so if you can answer, and anybody listening, if you don't know how to answer that question, I can help you. But we
Mhm.
go through some exercises to help them ground in that. Then you can talk about the how,
Yep.
right? Like I go through the whole thing in my book about how to do this, but it's really like what we do, why it matters, and then how we do it. That's,
Yeah.
but most people, because they're
Yeah.
staff people, they lead with the how because that's what they do and that's what they
Right.
see the.
Well, and also, I think a lot of organizations lead with the how because either their program was designed and launched 30 years ago, and the why has evolved over the years in response to various funder requirements. And now the how and the why have somehow become disconnected.
Yeah.
And so we work with organizations a lot to start with the end in mind. A lot of these programs um, have evolved over the years. Organizations aren't in touch with those original intentions. And so they were designed forward rather than backward. And so we work with organizations to design their programs backwards. Start with the result you want to achieve, and then ask yourself, to achieve that, what do we need to do? And to do that, what do we need to have? Instead of a lot of organizations going, well, what do we have? We have this skill, we have this resource, we have this donor, we have a board member who cares about this. So, what can we do with all of that? Oh, let's go do this. And then they say, okay, well, what might happen if we do that? And then that's how they end up with their outcomes. And we really want people to start with the end in mind and design their programs backwards from that.
All right, a couple questions. One, so if you already have a program,
Yeah.
right, how do you do that? How do you start with the end in mind if it's something that's already running?
Right. So it's kind of like reconnecting with your purpose. And so this is where we have a conversation. We get frontline implementers, program managers, and directors. We get them in the room and we suspend reality. We say, set aside all your funder promises, set aside what your accrediting body requires, set aside your evaluation tools in your database, and let's talk about what success looks like to you. What's meaningful to you? And then we list all those intended outcomes on the page. And then we list, okay, what are you currently doing? We list all their current activities. And then we see how well they line up. And usually they have activities that aren't connected to one of the outcomes they just said they care about. And usually they have outcomes they said they care about that aren't supported by any of their current activities. And so it becomes an opportunity to refresh the program and double check and make sure that the program is in fact aligned with their intentions, and slowly then phase out the old outcomes that were created in response to funder requirements, or just counting what's easy to count, and we phase in the more meaningful ones. And so it's kind of just, it's a path back to purpose, I guess, because programs lose their way over the years as leadership changes, as funders change. Oh, we got a grant for this, so now we're going to offer this service too. It becomes a patchwork.
Right. And
And
then 10 years later, they're still offering that service and then they don't know why. And yeah.
mhm,
Mhm.
mhm. Yeah, it's the nature of the beast. Believe me, I get it. I'm not blaming anybody for it. Nonprofits have to survive in a system that doesn't always support the level of intentionality and focus that you and I are talking about.
Right. All right. My next question is there nothing that can be measured? Like, is there something you can say, I just don't know how to measure this. I don't know how to account for this.
Sure. Yeah, and a lot of what nonprofits are after is genuinely difficult to measure because it's not things you can observe with the naked eye. We're talking about changing people's beliefs and attitudes and thoughts and feelings. And a lot of that stuff you can either measure it by asking people. How accurately people can assess and describe their own internal workings is TBD.
Right.
Um, or you can observe for indicators of the internal thing that you care about. And this is a lot of what you do in your work, right? When you're talking about people with communication. If you're trying to measure self esteem, but you can't administer a survey, you can't interview people, you observe for indicators of positive self-esteem, right? And so you can use proxy indicators to measure a lot of things. You can measure a lot by asking people, but they just have to be really carefully crafted questions so that people are answering the question that you think you're asking.
Okay. All right. Um, what can, as anyone who's listening to this, my millions of fans out there, what could we do? What could somebody do now? Like, is there any little actionable things people could start doing now to shifting their work to start working on creating more intention?
Yeah. I would say just do that thought exercise. Set aside all your promises. Ask yourself what success looks like. And sometimes it can be really hard, particularly for frontline program implementers, to answer that question because they're trying to make it measurable. They're trying to make it sound good to a funder. So I just have them tell me stories about their most successful clients. And I say, well, what was it about that client that was a success? Or what was it about that project that was a success? And just get people to reconnect with their purpose that way. So I put it in this order: meaningful, then measurable, then manageable. It has to check all three, but in that order. Because if it's not meaningful, I don't care if it's measurable or manageable. It's got to
Right.
clear that hurdle first. And so take a look at the outcomes that you're promising to people. Is that the story you want to tell? Is that exciting? Is that why you get out of bed in the morning? Is that gonna answer the question, why are you here?
Right.
Why do you matter?
Oh, I love that so much. I love that so much because it really is, um, like, and this is the work that I do. It like I tell people, it comes from you, right?
Mhm.
Like, and what you put out is what you get back. And so I imagine that there's a lot of renewed energy and excitement when you tap into the meaning and they get to tap back and like, oh my God, I'm actually working on the thing that I wanted to work on that makes me when I get out of bed, and how
Yeah.
much more exciting and engaging that is, for people. Because I just had a call with someone the other day who was like, I wanted to give up, but I'm not making the impact that I want. And um and if you're feeling that way, it's hard to enroll people in your vision. It's hard to get people excited about
Yeah.
the change. Um and it tends to just like weigh down, and
Mm.
everything in my world, I know, everything's energy, and like, and people can feel that, and they tend to like not connect.
Yeah.
So if you're coming from a place of like, okay, meaningful, measurable, manageable, but what I'm hearing you say is like a lot of times people go manageable, measurable, meaningful, right? Like, so like, if when we start in that, what gives us meaning, and then okay, let's measure that, and then it becomes manageable. And also, like, I can imagine the cultural shift that
Mhm.
happens when people get grounded in that meaning.
Yeah. Yeah, because usually organizations come to us feeling burdened and
Yep.
burned out. They
Yep.
resent evaluation. They don't want to collect this data. It's this extra clunky thing that they don't want to do, but they have to do because they're measuring stuff that's not meaningful. But if we get them reconnected with that purpose and we do the three M's in that order, well, now they're getting data on stuff that matters to them that they can use for learning and for improvement. And it's telling the story they want to tell. And now evaluation is something that's energizing rather than burdensome. That's our goal, anyways.
Yeah, I love it. That's amazing. Okay, is there anything else you want to share?
Oh, there's so much more I want to share, but I think we've had a great conversation. So I'm going to leave it there.
Yeah, and I think, even if somebody would just start with the, hey, let's put down, what we really want to measure, and then what we're doing, and just taking a look at that. That's a great place to start.
Yep.
All right. And if we'll put this in the show notes so that if people want to learn more about what you do, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so they can check us out at our website and you'll put the link. It's insightsintoimpact.com. And you can follow me on LinkedIn or you can follow the IllumiLab on LinkedIn. We have some webinars coming up this fall.
Oh,
And
awesome.
we have a lot of great content on our website through our blog.
Awesome. So lots to learn. And I love, because I do a lot of webinars and all of that. And so we both share a lot of content, and um, there's no shortage of information out there.
Yeah.
Okay, so my last question, we do live in the same city.
Mhm.
And I love karaoke. So if we were ever wound up at karaoke night, what's your go-to song?
Oh, no, I don't no. No, I have no go-to song because I will not do karaoke.
What song would you like me to sing for you then?
Oh. Anything Billy Joel, I think, would be fun.
That's awesome. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I won't do Piano Man, but I will do any other Billy Joel song.
Alright, cool. To date.
But you will not be singing. No, your face. No.
Nope.
No. Well, it's good to know. But it was like, I was like, oh, you want to go to karaoke? Like, oh, I don't sing. I'm like, even better. Cause like, that's my dream,
Sure,
a
sure.
bar full of people and like, five singers. All right, Sarah, this has been amazing. I have learned so much and I have such a better appreciation, for what you do and for, for unburdening the burdensome work of evaluation. And I just
Mhm.
thank you so much
Thanks
for
for
being
having me.
here. You
Thank you.
bet. All right. And as always, if you haven't yet, you can go to theinfluentialnonprofit.com. Throw me your email, and I have this really cool up level your influence starter kit. It has a lot of the principles and that I teach and train around in an ebook and a couple of other goodies that you want to get. And as always, if you feel called to talk to me about your leadership or your communications, I am happy to talk with you. You can just email me at marianne@marianders.com and we can start a conversation there. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time on the Influential Nonprofit.